Everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 217, recorded on September 5th, 2012. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Alan Malentano.
And I'm Scott Michaud. Yes, you can count. There's 5.
There are 5 of us. We brought Scott in because we have a very specific, complicated, in-depth article that he wants to, talk. We'll give him about 20 seconds of time to discuss it and dive into it.
Each
what?
No, start total.
No, just for you total. That's what I meant. Like, everybody else gets the normal allotment of time. You just don't. You get a little of the group.
It's the new guy thing.
Yeah, it's just.
And you just used up a second of that, by the way.
And
Yeah.
Scott, do you have a point of sale unit behind you?
No, that's a pick.
Oh, now he's down to 17 seconds.
Yeah.
Doomed. Quick reminder, again, we're only going to do this for a couple more weeks. If you are wondering where we went, we are at pcper.com/live in terms of our full-time recording and that kind of stuff now. We are not on the Twit network, but we are still recording live. pcper.com/live is where you can get our video stream, a chat room, all that good stuff as well. So you didn't miss out on all the pre-show and post-show fun, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Let's just go ahead and dive right into the content here so we can get through it and get on to more important things like playing video games. First up is a review that Lee posted of a new power supply, the Corsair AX1200i. Now, we have looked at and reviewed the Corsair AX1200 power supply before, but this one is a little bit more unique in that it adds a DSP, a digital signal processor to deliver clean, efficient power with the ability to make real-time adjustments to various internal parameters, which is actually really, really cool. Now you can see this picture here is nice and translucent looking. You kind of see the internals. Neat stuff there. This is what the key is, though, is this device that I'm holding up here to this camera. Is this little thing that it's a Corsair Link device. And what you'll see on this side is a USB header. It goes into an internal motherboard USB header, and then on this side you just get like a little. It's like a little 4-pin connection in here. And what you'll see is there's a 4-pin cable that goes from the power supply to this device inside the system. Let me go down here to one of these other pages on the article and kind of show you how it gets installed. Where is that at? So. Otherwise, the internals of this are very similar to the AX1200 that we'd seen before. Here we look at the back of the power supply. You'll see at the top there's a COM port right there, and that is obviously what connects to the USB. There's a self-test button, which is nice, kind of give you a quick run around on whether or not it's actually going to function. Lee does a really good job. He takes apart all the power supplies. If you want to see what the internals are, it's always interesting to see what's in there. Here we go. Let's go to the Corsair Link monitor. This is the kind of the unique, different change to the device. There's your USB accessory, and you'll see kind of a block diagram of how the signal processor works, what controllers it goes through, and how it actually gets all the information. And here you see a screenshot of Lee's, or a picture rather, of Lee's kind of testing configuration. Those are load creator. You can see the Windows application going, and basically what you do is you install a piece of software on your computer that gives you it's Corsair. I think it's just called Corsair Link. It's been around for a little while. You can use it to monitor fan speeds and that kind of stuff in their cases. If you have Dominator memory modules that have the 4-pin connectors on them, they connect into a Corsair Link hub that allows you to change, monitor voltages, change settings, monitor temperatures, and all that kind of stuff as well. The new stuff you get is, for the power, is you get, oops, wrong screenshot there. You get all kinds of new information that you can monitor in real time, like the Corsair or the AX1200i's fan speed, the internal temperature. You'll also be able to monitor, let's see if I have a larger version of this. Here we go. You'll also be able to monitor the efficiency of the power supply in real time. You'll be able to monitor the actual power output and power input in terms of wattage, what it's drawing, what it's actually giving out to the system. Obviously, that's where the efficiency comes from. The temperature. And then you can actually even look at each individual rail here and see how many volts they're using, how many amps they're using. You that kind of thing. It's actually really good information. It's interesting to see if you want to pay attention to, you want to take note of what your graphics card is using. You know, you can combine all the 12 volts into a single rail and monitor that kind of stuff. The software offers, you know, fairly unique set of features that I don't think I've ever really seen in a power supply before. I may be a little behind on something like that, but we did have some trouble getting it to work correctly right out of the box. We had some driver installation issues with it. Basically, you plug this into an internal header, it shows up as a USB device. You install a driver for it, and it just works. There's an LED on here. It's hard to see in our camera angle, but it's, you know, green when everything's connected and it's getting the right data. But the issue was we just had trouble installing the drivers on two different X79 systems. When we installed on a Z77 system, we had no problems right away. We're still working with Corsair to figure out exactly what the issue is. Obviously, we don't want to, you know, kind of recommend a device that has some compatibility issues or anything like that. But you know, if you kind of get past that and we assume that it will work in your system. And I will say that the X79 systems that we installed it on were GPU test beds that have all kinds of software changes to and from on them, graphics card drivers, operating system reinstalls, and that kind of stuff. So there could be some issue there. Overall, it's a really, really good power supply in general. Again, it's an AX1200. We know kind of what to expect from that. It did get a gold award from Lee. So if you are interested in a high output power supply, has some advanced features, I think it's actually selling for like $349 at Newegg, which is steep, definitely, but not super crazy. Lee's actually finishing up a review of the EVGA 1500 watt power supply, which is about $100 more than that. So we'll have to see how those compare. But a pretty good power supply overall. If you're looking for, obviously you need to be doing SLI, maybe even three-way Crossfire SLI with these types of things to really get an advantage out of a 1200 watt unit. So, Josh, you have an AX1200 that you use for one of your test beds, is that right?
That is correct.
Any issues with? I know it's not this version with the DSP in it, but overall, you've been a fan of the power supply.
Yeah, even when under pretty light load, it seems to stay pretty efficient. So, you know, when it's running with the processor down and the graphics down, with, you know, a 6-core processor, it's hitting about 90 watts at the wall, which when you consider that's, you know, a 990 FX based board and an AMD Phenom 2X6 1100T, that's not too bad. That's pretty impressive low power consumption. Now, if we had you know, a Z77 motherboard with an Ivy Bridge, it would probably be hitting down the 78 for the entire thing. So it's, you know, it seems to stay pretty efficient even at low loads, and I just simply can't throw enough graphics.
I don't know about
to get it 100%.
I don't know about the original AX1200, but the new I, we were running a GTX 690 off of it, and the fan hadn't actually turned on yet. Like it was you know, to the point where it was still running cool enough that we hadn't even gone as so far as to actually force it to enable the fan on the power supply. So that's pretty good news. Another article that went up, this one actually posted by Matt Smith, was a look at Lucid Logic's Virtue MVP. This is software we've talked about quite a bit here. The unique part about this is it is the first time it's been seen on a mobile platform. This is actually on the, let's see, the Origin EON, or I don't know if it's EON or EON 11S portable gaming laptop, and turns out Origin is going to be the kind of, I guess, the exclusive partner for Virtue MVP Mobile to start with. What is the Virtue software? If you don't have a background on it, Matt does a pretty good job of giving you an overview here. It's a piece of software that allows you to essentially operate both discrete and integrated graphics, not simultaneously, but without having to switch between them. Think of what NVIDIA's Optimus technology attempts to do, but maybe a little bit has a little bit more features if it's not as effective. It's enabled by a technology they call GPU virtualization. They basically say that what their software does, it has the capability to segment each kind of action or task that the GPU can handle, and then create if kind of like a virtualized environment for it, and then it can apply either GPU it wants to it. So for gaming, obviously it'll use a discrete GPU, and for video playback, transcoding, that kind of stuff, it can use the integrated GPU on the Sandy Bridge or Ivy Bridge processors. It has, I guess its two primary features on MVP are virtual VSync. It enables you to eliminate screen tearing while running at frame rates above 60 frames per second. Now, it's an interesting technology and how they all kind of work it out. I won't dive into too much of it here because Matt does a pretty good job looking at it. You'll see performance numbers reported by Fraps that are higher than 60, but really what you're seeing are user interaction rates that are higher than 60 frames per second, if that makes sense. It's not actually running at a higher frame rate necessarily. It's running at a higher response time, and it's kind of limiting the frames that you see to 60 in order so that you don't see on-screen tearing. The other technology is called Hyperformance. Hyperformance, again, naming not my favorite aspect of that.
Oh no, come on, it's going to be one of the worst, and I don't know how long.
Yeah, it's
Performance.
Hyperformance. Yeah, I don't know. So the idea of Hyperformance is that it does more than what Virtual VSync does. It actually kind of combines the power of both of the GPUs in your system, enabling a little bit better performance, sometimes a lot better performance. And again, when I say performance, I'm not talking about, you're not increasing the amount of data that the game engine is actually rendering, but you are increasing the polling time of what that game thinks it has. So you might have better responsiveness, high-speed Twitch gaming like Battlefield 3, something like that. You might see improved responsive times, right? So if you look at Matt's testing here, with high performance on, Fraps reports a speed of 72, and with it off, it's getting 61 at the maximum level. So what you see these aren't actual frame rate differences, they are response time differences. It's an interesting technology. Matt kind of complains about the user interface. You can see here the screenshots, it looks like dated software. You've got these two giant green buttons, and then you've got this cartoon character of a sexy robot lady, I guess, and then here you
think
see
she's sexy?
Yeah.
Well, she was supposed to be, I would assume. And here she is juggling balls. So
Nothing better.
Nothing better than a sexy robot lady juggling balls.
Can you repeat after me?
Yeah, I knew Josh was going to have something for this.
I'm not going to repeat after you, but you can say it.
Lucid Logic is a fabless.
Lucid is a fabless semiconductor company. You may have heard that before.
Actually, I'm kind of curious about this technology though, because what it seems to do is it used to allows you to affect the frames that should be rendered but aren't, and it renders the 60 frames per second, correct?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of an easier way to explain it. So what it basically does, in my various takes from different people in different companies, is that it will tell a game engine that a frame is done before the frame is actually finished, if the Lucid software determines that frame is not going to be used, right? So what it kind of does is it says, okay, we've got 60 hertz that we have to meet in order to hit the no tearing goal of virtual VSync. But if the game can render more than that, we should let it render more than that, because the rest of the game engine can run a little bit faster in theory, right? Some game engines have polling times that are fixed time. Some of them go as fast as the GPU will let them, and sometimes there's a mix. And Scott, you probably know more about this than I would. But what it can say is, if this frame that the game engine is telling us to render. Now remember, Lucid software kind of sits between the game up here and the NVIDIA driver or ATI driver down here, and it kind of sits in the middle. And so it takes everything from the game and it says, okay, well, it wants to render this frame, but we don't think it's actually going to be shown, or our algorithm says it's not going to be shown. So I'm going to go ahead and tell the game engine that we're already finished with that, so that the game engine doesn't have to wait on anything. It immediately loops back around and starts its kind of game engine logic.
The reason why it confuses me is for two reasons. The first one is because I know a lot of games, like you said, don't actually go by frame rates to pull
Sure.
the keyboard. As a matter of fact, there are some console games that are known to like wait 100 milliseconds to actually look at the keyboard or mouse or control pad or whatever is being used. So I'm wondering what the actual perceived smoothness will actually end up being. Another thing is that since you're not interacting with the frame you're seeing because your keyboard input is going to some other main loop
Yes.
function, I'm wondering how that would actually help you. If, for example, you're moving your mouse really fast and you press fire, that frame might actually have the crosshairs in the head, but it might be the next frame, which is beyond it, or the frame
Right.
before it, which is before it.
So I imagine there's cases where it happens both ways, where the display has started outputting a frame onto the screen, and the Lucid software says, okay, well, this next frame would be rendered not in time by the time it got to the end of the screen anyway, so because we have VSync enabled, it would just throw that away normally, or would be unused normally, but things might be waiting for it anyway, so it kind of jumps ahead. But I see it could go both ways, where, like you're saying, you might be a frame behind, or you could be a frame ahead, and that's kind of I guess the perception from the Lucid software. And I really think it comes down to a game per game thing, and it really comes down to how the users kind of perceive that. I personally, I can tell you, it's not super obvious to me when it happens. Now, I think just as a like a mental thing, gamers are going to love the fact that they're not seeing visual screen tearing while their fraps or frame counter in the side is up at 70, 80, 90, 100 frames per second, right?
Yeah.
It's going to make them feel better, even if it may not, do anything super dramatic for the gameplay experience. But it's really interesting. I have multiple people that have kind of like commented on it. NVIDIA being one of the big ones, AMD being another one, kind of talking about how this actually affects things. If they're dropping of frames here or there actually affects the experience of the animations, the smoothness of the animations directly or adversely, or positively, and that kind of thing. And as you know, Scott, there's other things we're working on to try to be able to detect that kind of thing. So it could be interesting down the road to kind of add that in and be able to test it in a more scientific method, as opposed to our kind of sit down and play it and try to guess how it feels compared to how it felt 15 minutes ago. So,
There's also a little sidebar, sorry about that.
Yep.
Some actual really bad console ports, if you look in the advanced settings of video if they have them, and you see VSync and lock at 30, sometimes those games, what they actually do is, almost all console ports, since they assume they're going to be at 30 or whatever frame per second, because
Yeah.
that's what the console's capable of doing, they actually, instead of calculating how long a second is, loop it into the frame rate. So there's some games like Halo that when they took off that 30 frame per second limiter, the game speed was fluctuating up and down. So like you're driving a car and the car speeds up, slows down, and then you have online and it gets like you're not syncing with the other guy and it gets all messed up. So
yeah.
I'm supposing games like that you want to just leave on locked frame rate and not touch it.
Is that what eventually happened with the Halo that came out on PC?
Halo PC, the first one, yeah. There's two of them that came out on PC. The second one had a similar problem, but VSync took care of it.
Gotcha.
The first one actually had a setting, 30 frame per second, like it was VSync. It was on, off, 30 FPS. Leave it on 30 FPS you want to.
If you want it to work correctly.
Or just don't play it.
It was actually a good game.
I liked Halo.
Bite my tongue on that one.
I liked Halo.
For the
I did.
PC.
Halo
For the
2.
PC.
I played all of them on the console. I did. I'm not going to lie. But let's move away from that discussion, and let's talk to Scott. Actually, I totally forgot. We had two articles from you this week that we wanted to talk about. The first is your thoughts and kind of a quick take on the Corsair K60 and K90 keyboards.
Actually, it should be pretty quick. The thing with Corsair, as we've been talking about before, is that they've been expanding to crazy amounts of new markets, right? They've
Yep.
been launching products that are completely unrelated to one another and completely unrelated to what they normally do. And each time they actually try, and they seem to do really well. They actually look at the competitors and think up new features that none of them have, and launch that in their first iteration of their product line. You can see that with the mechanical keyboard review that I was doing. there is. I'm not exactly sure because I'm not an electrical engineer. I don't really know much about the internals of a keyboard, but something to do with the actual controller on it, as well as some other factors. If you do a credit card and you slap the keys in order from left to right or right to left or whatever, you might end up having the inputs get backwards and confused because the keyboard is scanning and doesn't actually see the right order. It just sometimes it misses key presses if it's a really bad keyboard. Sometimes it gets them out of order because this is on one matrix, that's on another matrix, or maybe it scans forward and backward differently. Like maybe it always watches right to left, or left to right, I mean. So if you hit a credit card down on QWERTY, you'll see a key WERT. But if you go backwards, that might be TRWQ or something. It might get some things backwards or out of order in some way. So I did that on the Corsair, and it actually was one of the best keyboards I've tested. Oddly enough, I was trying to make a point about how bad membrane keyboards were, so I came across an old, that's the graph of percentage, and you can see that actually beat out the Razer Black Widow. That being said, this test is very horrible on error, so really anything above 75 or 80% should be considered a pretty good keyboard, because it depends on how good I can hit the keys with the credit card and factors like that. Like the RK9000 RE that I used to test all the way at the bottom. It's scored pretty abysmally, and the last time I tested it actually scored a little bit better than that. Not really all that good. The backwards test was 30% as opposed to 3%, which tells me that it's probably a controller or something that's scanning left to right or something like that. Again, I'm not exactly sure the details inside, but it's probably that similar issue where it's scanning left to right. But the Corsair, as you see, beat almost all of them except the membrane keyboard I tried to prove a point on. It was one of the old ones from 2000, 2001, one of the Microsoft ones. So it was actually when they cared about keyboards, so it actually beat all of them on the forwards, but it had some problems going backwards. So it was.
You need to institute the rolling pin test.
What was that?
Do it on the entire. Institute the rolling pin test. Do it across the entire keyboard, back and forth. Larger sample size.
Never thought of that. I'm not really sure how you would really.
How you would be able to accurately
the thing with
measure
credit cards,
that,
you have to know exactly which key was pressed. If you're only pressing 5 with a straight edge, you know left side hits first, right side hits last, so it goes
Fair
left,
enough.
right.
I bet you could figure it out, though.
Yeah.
So which of these keyboards? They both use the red switches, right? The cherry red. In terms of like the features of the keyboards, which one did you kind of maybe prefer more than the other? So the K60 is like the gaming one. It has the swappable keys on it, and then the K90 is more of the MMO one, right? That has all the macro keys and that kind of stuff in the backlighting.
Backlighting. Yeah, it would be nice to have backlighting options on both of them, but really it's really hard to tell which one would be better. It just depends on the set of features it has. There were some things that I didn't like, and that was that not every key is mechanical. Yeah. And you think, okay, the keys are not very used that much. They would, put a membrane switch behind just to save a bit of money, and the ones that are used a lot would have mechanical switch because that's where the precision accuracy goes. But they go kind of willy-nilly on it. Like the insert deletes are all membrane, but the number pad is not. And then there's the macro keys, which should be used more than anything on the right side of the keyboard for any right-hand gamer, and are all membrane.
And they don't have the same backlight.
I wasn't really paying too much attention to that.
They either don't have a backlight or it's a very, very low backlight. The K90 that I have here, they're membrane, and then like aren't the function keys?
The function keys are membrane as well, which makes a little bit of sense because you're not going to be really tapping that repetitively because it's usually just bring up a context menu or something. But so I could see the function keys, but the macro keys, isn't that kind of the point of having a macro key is to use it repetitively in gaming?
Yes, I would agree with that 100%. That was like my biggest gripe about the K90 was that this is like the primary feature of your keyboard, why it differentiates itself from the K60, and you don't include those. And they do have other things I like. They have the full power USB pass-through, which I do like. They have the Windows key lock button, so you can enable and disable the Windows key kind of on the fly.
The volume rolls are amazing.
Is it? You like that?
Yeah. I don't know why no one really has done it before that I've seen. And it's also, they pack in a lot of stuff. You said they had replaceable keys. They removed the keycap ripper. It was the first keyboard I've seen, although Matt had another CM Storm that had a keycap ripper as well. But it was the first keyboard I've seen it included. And also, another thing that kind of bothered me was, I know I said every key was separate from itself, so you can press all the keys down pretty much at once, and it would register each keystroke. Well, they included these little hardware interrupts for programming the macro key, which you can do with some of the keys up top and in the drivers, but they included it also on the keys itself. So if you have any key combination, for example, Control-Alt-Shift-B, I think it was, you cannot press that key combination with that keyboard. It just not lets you. It's baked into the controller to have that bound to some macro function.
Okay. Now,
And
I think
also,
does
even
the
worse is if you're pressing another
K90... Oh, go ahead.
And there are problems if you're pressing another key while that happens, that can have a glitch where that key gets stuck down. I mean, the key is up, but the keyboard's going to keep notifying it as the key pressed down until you physically unplug the keyboard. You have to completely unplug the keyboard for it to stop registering that.
That's kind of weird. Does the K90 have the capability to? I think they were telling me this. You can set the macros without having to use the software. Like you could set it through shortcuts and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there are some shortcuts on the keyboard in various places. I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not sure exactly where. But also some of those hardware interrupts I was talking about, that's what their purpose is. But you would think that instead of just preventing the consumer from pressing Control-Alt-Shift-B or G, you would have an extra small button that would do that functionality instead of just wasting a key combination.
Right.
But, I mean, it's probably not going to be that useful except for maybe Linux gamers who may have weird Control-Alt-Shift combinations to bring up terminal or something.
Gotcha.
But, yeah.
Well, if you want to read more about the K6 and the K90, check out Scott's review. We just posted it a couple of days ago, actually just yesterday as of a record this. So get his take on these new Corsair mechanical keyboards. Now the next thing we want to talk about, and this is something
Can I talk about that now?
I don't. What are we looking at?
What the heck?
What are we looking
Sorry,
at?
I'm
He's showing
being
off his
Scott.
papers.
Scott's got papers behind him, and so I had to.
I don't.
Actually, the funny thing is they've been sitting there since before I redesigned the room, so the camera used to not even be pointed at. I used to actually have
I
the
lived
first
there
couple times on the
before his
podcast.
papers.
I used to have the camera pointed down that way.
Now you keep in
So
mind that we
it's-
can't read any of that, so it could be completely just
Yeah.
made up crap too, Josh.
Just two
Don't-
papers that he put on his wall, and Josh is
Yeah.
all.
Oh, good lord! Come on. Let's see.
From Harvard.
No, I wasn't
Have-
talking about you, Josh. Actually, I was talking about
Uh-oh.
Scott, but that's fine. Wyoming has a school?
Yeah,
It's
what?
got a really good school. Damn it.
Huh? Weird.
Oh.
All right. Moving on. This is a topic we could probably talk about for a really long time, but I really just wanted to kind of give Scott a chance to give a quick teaser out and make people go to the website and read this story. This is kind of an editorial on the topic of video games as art and why that may or may not be a good goal for them.
It's basically that the title is "Video Games Do Not Want to Be Art," and that's basically because people have been debating whether video games are art since the cows come home. And I go through a couple of times where it's pretty obvious it has various artistic qualities. What do you want to call that? Still art? That's semantics. It does have the qualities of it, but then everyone who's like, "Oh, my medium is art," it means so much to me, and so on and so forth. Then they buy consoles or play on Windows and other platforms that are completely disposable and proprietary, and for loving the art so much, to only be able to play it for, I think, at maximum 10 years before it completely goes away is pretty insane. Gabe Newell a while ago was talking about supporting Steam on Linux, and frankly, I think that in the long run, that's kind of what we need to go to, or BSD or a similar licensed operating system, because until we go to an open source operating system of some sort, if the platform owner decides to change your platform in a way that will destroy art, if the original owner doesn't port it, the community can't legally or sometimes otherwise do that. And it's getting even worse. We're going to the Netflix or the OnLive or the whatever model where everything is disposable, and when the platform owner says, we don't want you playing it anymore because we don't want to run a server, or we don't like licensing deal, or we want you to buy a sequel, it's gone. You have nothing you can do short of going over to their server farm and backing a pickup truck up and driving away with some giant computer.
So, I guess the kind of premise of the story, as I took it, was if games want to be art, or if you as a consumer believe that games should be treated as that, or at least some games should be treated as that, that we need to have the capability to preserve them in such a way. It's not like the Mona Lisa suddenly had to be burned after a certain expiration date of the whatever medium it was painted on, right? And that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And obviously there's place for entertainment too. There's good uses for Netflix or whatever. But if you consider a work of art to be intrinsically valuable in itself, then you shouldn't be content when someone just says, you can't play this anymore, you have to play this.
Right.
It's like I say an example of if suddenly the service provider says, oh, you really like Schindler's List? Well, now you're going to be watching this Boy in Striped Pajamas. Well, they're both similar movies in some arbitrary way, but they don't mean the same thing.
So
if you take away the commercialization, if you put the game on a platform where somebody actually has to know what it is they're doing to be able to get to the point we're running, a game is actually possible. You know, the complaint about PC gaming going back 8 years or so. All of a sudden, games are actually going to be more art-like and less casual gaming taking over what used to be something interesting, and is now just coming, it's like don't worry, everybody wins, it's fine. They don't have like the old LucasArts, you step in the wrong spot, you die. It's the old Sierra Adventure games. You do the wrong thing, you're going to have to start again from the very beginning, because you actually have to build this very intricate piece of work in order to complete the game. To what it is now, where you get a pat on the head and don't worry, here's a big blinking light after 2.5 seconds if you haven't figured out what you're doing. Casual gaming can't be art because it's casual.
I think what also is kind of interesting is if we look at it, I think your story, Scott, kind of looks at it mostly from the consumer standpoint. I think it's also important that we push these developers to think of it this way. If they, and you do comment on this in the story, that if a developer really believes what they're creating has an impact, if they believe they're creating is more than just some throwaway entertainment, they should also be concerned about the longevity of their creation, right? Will they be able to? Will the original creators of Halo that built this game, that they believe it changed the culture of gaming, right? For better or for worse, depending on who you are on this podcast. But it's a very important part of the ecosystem, and realize now that a very significant portion of that game is no longer playable. Multiplayer in Halo was turned off when the original when Xbox Live, I guess, officially launched with the 360, right? So the thing that I can say I played through college, and this is through high school, and this is what we did, and this is how you change multiplayer gaming on a console standpoint, you have no access to anymore.
Yep.
So let me ask you this:
What? Go ahead.
Is Half-Life still playable on the PC in all of its forms?
Exactly. Actually, Valve and
came
Blizzard
out
are two examples of companies. Good.
Came out in 1998,
Yep.
and it still is playable on everything that it was originally sold on.
Good old games.
And that's one of the things I like about PC gaming. That's why I'm a PC gamer. That's why I haven't touched my console in 2 years. Is because I like to be able to go back to the games, and it kind of scares me when you give more and more middlemen access, sometimes complete access in non-live in that stuff case, to just people say, nope, we're not supporting it anymore. Like right now, if you have Oddworld Stranger's Wrath on the Xbox, and your Xbox is broken, and let's pretend they didn't re-release it on Good Old Games and all that other stuff as well. If your Xbox is broken, it wasn't made backwards compatible on the 360, you bring it to Microsoft to repair it, they're going to give back a 360 to you because they don't repair Xboxes anymore. So that art is just gone.
Yeah.
Period.
It's the thing is I believe that the people who actually sat there and coded and developed Halo, not the publisher, not the CEO of the company, the people who developed it and wrote it and who it was their soul that went into the game, they still wish that it was playable, I would bet. Right? They still believe that what they did was art. They still believe that it should be accessible and playable, even if it's for free or whatever it is. But it's not, as Scott points out in this article, it's just that the ecosystem that game was built for has no intention of maintaining things like that. I guess maybe Nintendo is kind of the best example of that because of their kind of continuous re-releases of things. You have to keep paying for it over and over again. But if you want to play the original Super Mario Brothers, you can do that on your Wii, downloading it through their store. So it's a really interesting topic that we maybe is slightly off our direct path that we usually talk about on this podcast because we are kind of mainly hardware focused. But I know everybody on here feel strongly about gaming and that kind of stuff. I mean, look at what we're going to do tonight. We're going to play UT 2004 after this podcast. And you could buy it last week or a month ago, as several people here did, download it, install it, and play it in basically its original form. I mean, the site that we go build our INI files for the server was stopped updating sometime in 2004. It still exists because of the internet doesn't, a website doesn't cost much to stay there anymore, and so we still have that capability.
Well,
And
I
even
remember
if you take
people
that
used to refer to the
master
long
server,
tail. The long tail as a business model. You might not sell a lot initially. It'll spike up a little bit as it gets popular, and then it keeps declining, but it never hits zero.
Sure.
All of a sudden, 8 years later, 10 years later, we just sold more UT 2004. What the heck, man? Well, it's a couple of bucks. Let's go out for beer. Versus, an entire console idea where, no, we got to get you through this game really quick so that you're going to buy the new game that's coming out, part 8 or 12 or 62.
Modern Warfare 4.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about Blizzard as well. You can go into a store and buy a copy of Diablo 2 at retail, and when those sell, they'll make more. It's been from 1990 or 2000 even. It was 2000 even, I think, for that
2000.
one. Yeah. So some developers like the long tail, and go figure. Those are the two developers that are ranting about Windows 8.
It's kind of sad that was one of the last Glide titles out there.
We all know you like to glide.
Yes.
Oh, and on that note, that positive reinforcing note, we are going to take a quick break here. Thank our sponsor for today's podcast, Alex from MSI.
The all-new Z77 M-Power mainboard from MSI is poised to change the overclocking game. Every Z77 M-Power board will have a factory 24-hour military-class burn-in test completed before shipping. Additionally, performance-optimized features such as Go-To BIOS, Multi-BIOS 2, V-checkpoints, Bluetooth 3.0, and onboard Wi-Fi allow users convenience and total system control over their overclocking and gaming experience. This is the new Endurance Champion, Z77 M-Power from MSI.
All right, thank you, Alex, for that.
Endurance Champion, courtesy of Herbal Viagra.
Something Josh has never been called.
No.
I apologize for the entry. Josh should apologize for the exit ad.
Let's run through a handful of news items we came up with this week. One, Jeremy, you posted this up. This is kind of I think this is a preview of what we're going to see at IDF. Wireless charging technology is one step closer to reality. Apparently, they have a working 10-watt model and hope to extend it to 120 watts very soon.
Though that's probably going to be a little while before they get it up to 120 watts. But, we've been seeing wireless power for a long time. I sort of brought up the idea of the old toothbrushes that used to charge through inductance.
Right.
One of the readers actually reminded me of something I'd forgotten, which was the original Palm. Was able to charge inductively. You just put it down on its little charge pad, no plugs, and it charged away. But no, Intel is really looking forward to putting this into upcoming chipsets, so that as long as you can get your cell phone or whatever it is that you want to charge within, about 10 centimeters or so of the charger or the charger pod on the motherboard, it's going to recharge. Right now, boom, they've already got one coil-based, 5 watts at a distance of 5 millimeters. They're working on 10-watt model, which is probably going to be pretty quick, and up, as you say, up to 120 watts, which at that point I'm thinking you can run some low-power systems on 120 watts. No plugs, just sit it on top of a charging surface and work away.
The gaming laptops at maximum 130, I think it was.
Yeah. So, like 120 watts, if they could pull it off, would be really impressive, especially if it doesn't get terribly hot. Because that is one thing, is, how much wattage does a kitchen element put off? Fortunately, a lot of it ends up being heat. So, Wireless Power Consortium is sort of a presenter we've been seeing at CES for a long time, and it's a group of companies sort of working together. But to see Intel sort of saying, you know what, we like this, we're going to incorporate it in upcoming chipsets, we're going to actually include it in devices, so you're not even going to go out and buy an accessory to charge things. Your actual laptop or computer is going to have, presumably, a little indicator on it. If place thing within 5-10 millimeters of this, it will charge.
This is something that's been I remember what Intel showed, I think it was 2 IDFs ago, they showed powering an incandescent light bulb at a distance of like 6 feet or something like that. And it was this huge coil, though, that was directing the power to the light bulb. Obviously, Intel has the money and the research team to be able to, kind of fund these types of things, and I think it would be really great. One of the Palm Pre, which was a great phone for the time, but quickly became outdated, one of its coolest embedded features was that it had capability for inductive charging, and you didn't have to worry about plugging in a device or something like that. The issue was it was kind of an expensive accessory to have one at your office, one at your house, one in your car, whatever it is that you wanted to have. So being able to have all this kind of technology built in everywhere would be good. Somebody in the chat room said that they don't want, they're not worried about wireless charging. They want denser batteries. Sure, what we actually want is both. Right? Or if you have wireless power that's safe and reliable, you don't need denser batteries because you have access to anywhere. My phone that's sitting here, if I happen to be within, maybe we get really far and I'm within 10 feet of a wireless power source, it's actively drawing power from it, that type of thing. So I don't have to worry about plugging it in, or if I need to have denser batteries. Right? Obviously, we want to see improvement in both, but we can do that.
If only we knew what Tesla was talking about when he built that tower. That stinking Kickstarter that they had to save that whole area, and that massive tower that was going to wirelessly power the world. What the hell was he thinking?
The oatmeal.
Sorry, I'm just visualizing Tesla in modern day, right? Like I'm just cruising, surfing Kickstarter, and like here's Nikolai Tesla with his, I'm gonna make this blah blah blah, and everyone's like, what the hell?
No, we all would have thought he was
museum
crazy.
worked. Why wouldn't he work?
Yeah, we all would have thought he was crazy to be like $5 on his Kickstarter.
What an idiot. Alan, why don't you... Go ahead.
I was going to say, actually, that Kickstarter is pretty nice. They wanted to level his house and laboratory to make an amusement park, and I think it was the Oatmeal or someone stepped up and made a Kickstarter to save it, and that's actually... and turned it into a museum. So...
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think they could have made an amusement park ride that was pertained to electricity right there on his house. I thought it'd have been just as...
They might very well.
Lay your testicles on this wireless charger.
And as long as you're not bald, your hair will stand up and glow.
And then you'll be bald.
Alan, let's talk about, real quick, the Western Digital released a Thunderbolt version of the MyBook.
Yes. I'm not sure if it's like shipping yet. I know they're trying to get us one to look at. Yeah, it's basically a dual Velociraptor 1 terabyte So total of 2 terabytes if you're willing to do Death Wish RAID. You can reconfigure it. You can make it do mirroring, striping, whatever you want.
Yeah.
It's basically an external Thunderbolt RAID in a box with 2 drives in it. It just looks like a really fat, guppy kind of MyBook.
What kind of hard drives is it using?
It's the Velociraptors, the 1 terabyte Velociraptors.
Okay, so that they do that just because of needing to have the speed to keep up with what Thunderbolt can do.
Well, I guess they're just trying to get it as fast as they can for,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, that's the fastest drive that they put out, right? You know, it's sort of limited on the amount of storage, obviously, but the performance is definitely up there, and since you're connecting a Thunderbolt, we're assuming here that, you know, the chipset in there, whatever it is probably going to be faster than regular hard drives, you know.
Yeah, I would assume so. $899 for the 2 terabyte version, not cheap.
Yeah, it's up there. But it is a RAID in a box. It is a full RAID controller. You can daisy chain these things, supposedly, so the RAID controller is... am I still there? The RAID controller is smart enough to be able to daisy chain via other Thunderbolt, you know.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah, so I think it could do up to 8. Like something like
Oh,
wait,
so if you have multiples of these, it'll actually RAID those devices together?
Yeah, it's with 4 disks or 4 devices.
Okay.
So you can basically do the RAID if you were doing mirroring. It can do the mirroring spanning across Thunderbolt devices. I'm guessing it's doing like a point-to-point
Gotcha.
FireWire style. You know, they just communicate amongst themselves, and they still appear as one device theoretically.
Right.
I gotta say, that does sound pretty clever, but with Windows 8's storage space is pretty...
Also true.
Like,
Also true, and a very good point.
it's like
but-
the jock arriving to the arena after it closes.
Well, right, but remember, Scott, this is an external kind of thing, really fast speed. So storage spaces, you have to take all the drives with you. It has to go to another Windows 8 box, right? You know, if you're using this, first of all, realize that the majority of people using this right off the bat are going to be Mac users. They're not going to have storage spaces, and if you ever want to interchange this thing back and forth, you know, between Windows and Mac, you can't if you're doing storage spaces. You're basically locked into Windows 8 once you do that, with whatever the storage array device is, right? It's more flexible. It makes it act just like a Drobo. You know, that's really good stuff. But you're tied in. You're stuck on 8.
Let's see. Oh, Arctic's stylish new Trinity-powered HTPC. Jeremy, you made this post. I don't know if you had any other kind of comments on it, other than it's a really slick-looking chassis design.
Yeah, but you're going to be paying a $700 and some premium to pick it up. But, I mean, really the thing is, it took you long enough to do. Why do we get stuck with all these basic sort of Atom or Brazos-based, you know, old, based on old technology HTPCs? Why could you not throw an A10 in there? So, Arctic finally did. They threw an A10 in.
Well, actually, what's interesting about that is this is the first time I've seen Trinity in a desktop platform, right? No?
Exactly.
Ken's shaking his head no.
It's a 4600M. It's a mobile part.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
It is mobile, but still, you still don't even see mobile Trinity very often in an HTPC. They always go with the previous generation ones. This may totally shock you. It's not a processing powerhouse. I hope you weren't going to buy this to do a lot of high-powered computing.
Right.
On the other hand, thanks to the inbuilt 7660G, I think it is, on that chip, you actually get relatively decent gaming performance and not a single problem trying to do any video playback, TV recording, or any of the other functions that you'd expect an HTPC to do. So, hey, you know, you could almost treat it like a console, except a little bit better looking and a lot more expensive.
Alrighty.
And better for art.
What's that?
True.
And better for art.
Also this week, or this past week, I guess, ASUS shows off Vivo Windows 8 and Windows RT tablets at IFA 2012. Now, I believe these are the tablets we'd have already kind of shown a little bit before, but now they have a little bit more of their branding. Previously known as the ASUS Tablet A10, the Vivo Tab is an 11-inch tablet weighing 675 grams. So get your converters out for those of us that live in the US.
Yeah, it's a little more than half a kilo.
That is still less than helpful. It has
Jeez,
a
Ryan.
Super IPS 1366 by 768 resolution. This is Intel Atom Clover Trail processor. So this is kind of the Intel-based Windows 8 one. And then the Vivo Tab RT is the Tegra 3-based device. You can see there, and it weighs 520 grams, which is also just slightly over half a kilo, but less over. If my math works out right, and I
But
understand.
boy, you would have a heck of a time cutting that up and snorting it.
Yep.
And there's a nice little table here that Tim put together that compares the Asus Transformer style tablets. You can see here, break down the processor memory, internal memory, display sizes and resolutions, and that kind of stuff. Anything here stand out? I mean, the Transformer Infinity, I feel like was the tablet that I was really looking forward to getting the most. This was a Tegra tablet that had the 1920 by 1200 screen. It's still the best screen out there of those, in my opinion. But now you have to start looking at, if you're looking at tablets, are you going to wait for a Win 8 RT, or you want to go with the Android? I'm still, if I were to buy one today, my favorite Android is still the Nexus 7. It was just because of cost and operating system viability and that kind of stuff. But I would consider, it's one of those things I'm still waiting to get my own personal hands-on time for more than 20 minutes at a time with WinRT and kind of see how it acts, how it operates, how it performs. So I'd be curious on that. So if you want to check out more of that, including the video of the Unreal 3 engine running on WinRT, which we did talk about a couple of weeks ago, check out that post.
Something that I'm very curious about, if we can go on a little sideways journey, is why some of these tablet makers aren't using the Qualcomm S4 dual-core 1.5 gigahertz processor with the Adreno 225. After reading as much as I have and playing with it, that is a processor that seemingly is as good, if not better, than the Tegra 3, even though it's half the cores. Well, more than half, less than half, because there's 5 cores in that stinking Tegra 3 thing.
Yeah.
And it's at 40 nanometer. The Qualcomm S4 is a 28 nanometer product. It sips power a little bit better, but it's still just so stinking fast. And it's a Crate architecture, which is Cortex A9 Plus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's closer to A15. Why aren't these guys like? Is it because Asus and them are just so close to NVIDIA?
Right. So how it kind of will work out is you'll see that for WinRT. I don't know about on the Android side, but for WinRT, it's going to be broken up where, NVIDIA gets to work with very specific hardware vendors, Qualcomm gets to work with very specific hardware vendors, TI gets to work with very specific hardware vendors, and so on. And I just don't think we have seen, I think Tegra is inside the Lenovo one as well, right? Yeah, so we've seen Lenovo talk about their tablet, or at least have leaks about their tablet, and then Asus, obviously. And those two just happen to be working with NVIDIA. There will be WinRT tablets that come out using Qualcomm chips, but they either haven't had the leaks about it, or the partners they're working with aren't as far along in development, which may make sense because Tegra 3 has been out a little bit longer, and thus their hardware solutions and dev kits and stuff are going to be further along than wherever Qualcomm and TI are with their chips. So, I mean, we're just now seeing the first devices with that Qualcomm kind of be released, right? So, exactly.
S3.
I think Tegra 3 was announced like in 2009 or something like that, right?
Something like that.
That's typically how NVIDIA does their SoC releases. Samsung showed off an Ultrabook with a 2560 by 1440 display.
And Apple is already suing them.
For some other reason, of course, but
Yeah, they're just going to throw that
It's
in.
got rounded corners.
It's shaped like a wedge. So it's an 11.6 and 13.3 inch Ultrabooks will have displays with a resolution of 2560 by 1440. It has a PPI rating of 220.84, which is a major improvement over current 13-inch series Ultrabooks that have a 138 PPI, which is obviously pixels per inch.
And I think it actually does beat Apple's Retina display. I think Apple's Retina was like 202 or something.
Yeah.
It's actually a
Here's-
little bit less, I believe.
Here's an important question. How well does Windows 8 handle high DPI? Has anybody messed with that?
I have not, but I assume it will be better, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't be showing this off this device. I assume the Metro interface would be, perfectly suited for that kind of thing. The regular
Metro,
kind of
Metro,
desktop
yes.
stuff.
I'm
I
worried
don't know.
about the desktop.
Well, I mean, I installed Windows 7 on the 15-inch MacBook Pro with the ultra high res display, and it did pretty well. It was more the base Windows applications and menus and that kind of stuff worked really well. It was like Steam didn't work really well with it, and its fonts were super tiny, and you had to adjust things on that way. So I don't really know. I'd imagine that that's an issue that they're trying to address with this before they release it. I don't know what it's going to cost. Oh, side note here, it does say that the 220.84 PPI is just barely higher than the Apple MacBook Pro with the high-res display that's 220.53 PPI.
I was just gonna say, because Arbiter pointed that in the chat room there.
Yeah. Yeah, so it looks nice. I mean, this is what I want to see. I mean, it kind of upsets me. They don't mention price, I don't think, in anything with this. But a 13-inch screen with a 2560 by 1440 display. But really, what I want to see is really cheap 27-inch displays with that resolution, like the Korean monitor that Ken bought and we talked about over the
I
last
saw
several
one of those
weeks.
for sale today for like $239.
Where at?
eBay.
Thanks for the link, Josh. Yeah. Jeez. God. So if you want super high-res Ultrabooks, you have that option as well. Anybody know anything about the new low-cost 35-watt Ivy Bridge processors that may be coming out soon? Other than
No.
this table. Tim made this post. Dual-core, 4-thread processors, 2.9 gigahertz, up to 2.9 gigahertz clock speeds, 35 watts, $138. Nothing revolutionary in terms of performance. The idea, obviously, being able to get this in super low power envelopes means getting higher speed parts in longer battery life Ultrabooks and that kind of stuff. So we'll probably see some of those integrated relatively soon as well. Although,
Well, they better not put the HD 2500 in there.
well, sure they are.
They probably
Well,
will,
too late.
but they shouldn't.
Yeah, no, I think it's a pretty safe bet, as Tim says, that the HD 2500 in there. And even if they do, you can just ask Matt Smith about the naming conventions and how the Intel HD 4000 isn't always necessarily as any better than what 2500 kind of does. So it's
Are you saying that Intel has a few things to learn about the graphics market?
I think I've been saying.
From NVIDIA.
I think everybody's been saying that for a long, long time. So, and I believe, well, not our last, but one of our last posts, ASUS killing the EPC line finally, and shrinking the Atom market with it. Jeremy, what's the kind of story here?
Well, it sort of struck me that we've seen such a huge change in the mobile market over the past couple of years, or over the past couple of months. We saw the netbook come in and sort of scratched our head and wonder exactly what the target market was, other than teenage girls that needed to be on Facebook 99% of the time. Oh, and Alan. But apart from that, it was just sort of, a very, very odd and honestly almost unusable sort of platform. Unlike Josh's phone, which apparently he's now totally sucked into. But according to DigiTimes, ASUS has finally thrown up their hands and said, you know what, the PC, we're not doing it anymore. We're trying to get Ultrabook prices down, so we need to ramp up manufacturing on that. And, frankly, the 13.5-inch notebooks are just as light and do a lot more. And with Windows RT coming out and the idea that, something similar to a Surface tablet is going to hit, or tablets, there's not really much point for a netbook anymore.
No.
And it's not just them, it is as well, where did it go? I'm trying to think. They did it, so it's only, I think, Acer that is actually sort of looking, Acer dropped out as well, so it's only MSI that's sort of staying in the netbook market, and who knows what they're going to do, because this pretty much sounds the death knell for Atom, at least in the original way that it was put in, which, has got to be partly Intel's fault because they really haven't put much work into the processor. There haven't been major changes to what the Atom is capable of doing since it was started years ago.
I mean, they did that on purpose. They knew what was coming down the pipeline. They know that they have super low wattage parts coming down in Haswell and that kind of stuff. By the way, if we look at this picture here on my screen, I believe this was Josh's favorite EPC.
Yeah, well, you know what? Something that you haven't really considered is
I've
why
considered
sell somebody a netbook for $175 when you can sell them an Ultrabook for $550 that does the same thing?
What Ultrabook can you find for $550?
Okay, I'm sorry, it's $750.
$1550.
Actually,
the tablet.
There's one for $650.
Here's a netbook for $150, $160. Here's a tablet for the same price. Which are you going to like?
Now, easy guys. Now, the typical Atom Ultrabook, whatever. The typical Atom-based notebook has totally different performance levels than your typical Ultrabook. Are they worth the considerable price difference? I would say no. I think most people realize that. Who was it that said that the netbook was like the race to the bottom? Was that Lenovo's?
Yes.
So no, it was Sony's CEO said we're not going to participate in this race to the bottom. And as it turned out, I don't think they ever released a netbook, and they were right. They might have missed out on some profits and some market share in that time by not taking advantage of it. But it like I said, as it turns out, they were right. And
no, they put it Vios.
I think Acer did say that afterwards, though. They made a press release saying that they're not going to put out low cost garbage anymore, and they're getting out of the low margin.
Yeah, I know they did. Yeah, they did. I mean, I'll be glad to see the EPC brand go away forever.
Switcherino! Okay, never mind.
And it's so sad
that
because
was
they
impressive.
stole that from one of the better races from Space Empires.
I don't.
A game that probably
don't
no
know
one
what
knows
that
about
is.
except for very
Anyway,
few people, but there was a race called
come
the
on,
E.
this was Asus's really big first, kick into the laptop world. I mean, they didn't have anything really much
it put
before
them on the map.
series, and that put them on the map.
It put them on the map without a doubt. It doesn't mean it was a good brand. I mean, it was a good product at the time. It was a perfect product at the time to meet the needs and the demands of what people were looking for there, right? Do you remember the first one? I still have the very first one with the Linux crap operating system that they had on it and stuff.
Yes, it was that white piece of crap.
It was
It
only
was cheap, and it was
that was the
some
only reason it was
nasty
useful. It was because it was
processor
cheap.
there.
Yeah, I mean it's and over time their EPC prices crept up, right? EPCs were $400, $500, that kind of stuff, and they were offering stuff that looked like that, right? They were trying to make it a fashionable accessory because there was no more innovation in the platform. So I think we can all at least agree that they're gone. Now, glad that they're gone. Last thing I think in our news items is, yes, Asus debuting the Powered by Asus systems through award-winning system integrators. This is a new campaign that they launched today, actually, I guess. And it is basically allowing, they think that they have a very popular brand with enthusiasts and gamers, which they obviously do, motherboards, graphics cards, notebooks. That's not a good idea. How about networking gear, monitors, audio, those types of things? And they've started a new program where system builders like, let's see, who was listed here? CyberPower, Digital Storm, Falcon, iBuyPower, Puget, Origin, Main Gear, those guys can build systems that are powered by Asus that use specific components, specific configurations that Asus is kind of certified for those purposes. Now there's these system integrators have probably been using some Asus components for quite a while, but you were never really sure. Most of the time you weren't 100% sure which motherboard you were going to get, which graphics card you were going to get, and all that kind of stuff, and how they were all going to work together. And the idea here for Asus is obviously to bundle all these components together for these system integrators to use, that then get passed on to consumers, and just kind of perpetuate the brand that they have been able to build with it. Jeremy, I don't know if you had anything specific you wanted to add about this.
But it's an interesting way to sort of sell a nice little bundle because it's not just the internals. The first thought you think is powered by ASUS, so it's got a motherboard, it's got a graphics card, and what else do they really sell? Oh wait, there's a sound card in there as well. And that's it? No, they're going to put the monitor with it, or monitors if you're going with a Crossfire system or an SLI system. They've got wireless routers that they're going to add to it. You know, it's like a whole package you can buy, essentially like, you know, a home computer network idea. So, you know, it's sort of interesting. And the nice thing is that they're not pushing it as a, you must do this, 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 and this to be powered by Asus. They're saying, here's a bunch of our stuff. If you want to build it in such a way that the vast majority of the components are ASUS, and up to and including the optical disk drive if you still swing that way, and you can now brand it. And, you know, the idea is, hey, maybe these things are going to work together a little bit better because, you know, they're a little bit famous for slightly overclocking the motherboards at default, and they might do the same thing for the GPUs, but hey, maybe the frequencies are going to match. If you get one of these boutique system builders that we've seen, you've done plenty of reviews for some of them, Ryan, and they put together nice systems. Systems that you would have dumped 10 or 12 hours, you know, doing the finicky bits to make sure that everything works perfect, and hey, it arrives at your door like that. So it's an idea that, you know, it's just not just the system. It's a monitor, it's your networking, it's everything.
Right.
It's an interesting idea, and I want to see what the benchmarks of these are like and what the prices of these are like versus one that you build yourself. Because one of the ideas is if I'm sourcing a bunch of stuff from ASUS, maybe I get a little bit of a discount, make it cheaper than if you'd bought it yourself.
Somehow I doubt it. Somehow I don't see that happening.
I'd like to see it.
You know, the SIs still have to make their profit on. These aren't systems that are actually hand-built by ASUS or anything like that. You know, they're just kind of certifying the components. And I think more important than, you know, what they would say the benchmarks is going to be the experience. You know, things like noise levels, things like software integration, things like, you know, overclockability and support and that kind of stuff that they would try to kind of differentiate with. So. Okay, let's move on. That's it for news. We're going to get into our hardware software picks of the week, and then we can do a little UT 2004 gaming. Actually, I did. Let me go last on my hardware software pick because I want to bring up something that I forgot to do to bring up earlier. So let's go ahead and start with Jeremy.
Actually, before you do that, let's
okay,
have a little fun something for the people who are viewing live. Name this card. Note the center placed SLI.
3D effects.
What?
I see a 3D effects Pure Video 2.
That's all you get, and it's a unique design. So, at the end of this, we'll go over what exactly that piece is.
Can you show me the card again? I didn't get a close enough look. 2 3DFX chips, an SLI. That's an SLI connector.
Yeah,
okay.
VGA out.
In the middle, and specialty VGA ins and outs.
Ooh, that looks
and
more
it is
like
a Voodoo
2
so there you
with
go.
the external link.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, my pick.
Yes, yours.
And I will segue into this by mentioning that Steam has this new community, and on that they've got Greenlight. Greenlight is a way that you can vote for the next games that will be available on Steam. They may be retail releases from years back. They may be mods of games that exist now, which are going to be a little bit easier to get a hold of and maybe make the guys a bit of money because you have to fork over $100 to Steam to get on the list. Or they could be a project like the one that's been going on since about 2004 by the name of Black Mesa. Now, Black Mesa is a complete redo of the original Thinking Man's first-person shooter, Half-Life. It is redone on the Source engine, and frankly, that's all you're going to need is a Source engine. But the best thing is, we got the news today that it's due out, not completely finished, but due out on the 14th.
Wait a minute.
So
how do you release it and not completely finished?
So it goes straight until the big fight in the Lambda core before you get transferred to Zen, which a lot of people at that point sort of say, you know, it kind of changed the whole game and got a little bit dumb on occasion. So they're still working on Zen. They're still working on the multiplayer. Apart from that, you're going to play through the vast majority of the story. Bigger maps. They sort of reference slightly redesigned storylines. So I doubt they're going to change it much, but they may expand it a little bit and maybe add in a lot of the teasers that we have at the point where we're now waiting for Half-Life 3, which still has not made it out, even though it's making money, and this is an open source mod where they're not making money.
All right, there you go. Josh, next.
Me?
You.
Shucks. Today there was a couple of specials around the country. One with, like, I think Newegg had it as one of their Shell Shocker deals. It was 120 gig Agility 3 from OCZ for something like $59. Well,
Okay.
you can almost get that with the $155 240 gig version of the Agility 3, but only if you want to wait a little while for the mail-in rebate. But still, $155 for a 240 gig SSD. It's going to be significantly faster than the 120 gig versions, as Alan would likely attest to.
64
Released in
and a half
rights.
cents per gigabyte.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Be
It was
even
funny.
better
We
if
were
the
always
numbers
watching the
included-
prices drop from like $3, $2, $1.50, $1.25, $20, $10, $5, $3, $2. We're always waiting for that dollar per gigabyte, and without warning, it just went to like 75 cents a gigabyte and down. There was like huge jump.
It's true.
There was like nothing between 75 cents per gigabyte and $1 per gigabyte. It just dropped.
Good news for us, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Speaking of that, Alan, what is your pick for this week?
So yeah, new storage test bed. Up and running.
Look at
Well,
the
not up
size
and
of
running
that.
now because I
Yeah,
disconnected
it's
all the cables
disconnected,
to,
yeah.
to show
That's
it to
a much
everybody.
bigger video
But,
card than Josh was showing.
So what's the motherboard? Tell me.
Okay,
Give me a
so
little bit of
the
quick rundown.
motherboard is a P8Z67V Pro slash what was it? Yeah, Pro slash Thunderbolt. So we can do Thunderbolt testing.
Good.
Very
That's a
important,
plus.
right? We have the Kingston HyperX that I actually did for the pick of the week last week,
Okay.
right? So no need to be redundant there. And the CPU is the 3770K, which for the first time I don't necessarily have to overclock in order to be consistent with prior results. How nice, right? Yeah, good stuff. I have a couple of images already ready to go, Windows 7, Windows 8. Trying to get some testing going. Already running into weird buggy quirks with Windows 8 storage spaces and some devices,
Awesome.
but I think that's just growing pains. I don't know. It's now I feel like Ryan, who's constantly pulling his hair out due to some random incompatibility with some random brand new
Why
thing.
is everything broken all of the time?
Yeah, that's basically yeah. Oh, and lesson learned. You can't necessarily use all the USB ports for the Windows installer. Even the Windows 8 installer. If you're using that AS Media, the new AS Media
Oh, right.
USB
right.
controller,
Sure.
it won't see it. So it's like it's weird because it sees it in the BIOS, but then you get to the Windows installer and you just have no mouse. You're like, what the heck?
It's awesome.
So-
Sweet. All
You
right.
guys were talking about computer problems, and that was the one who had a computer crash as I was trying to get on the podcast. Just completely just down.
Yeah,
Went black screen,
we have that
everything,
feeling all
and
the time.
the power light was going off and on and off and on. And
As opposed to Ken's totally planned reboot.
Yes. So, Scott, do you have a pick for us this week?
I have a pick, but first I'm going to ask you guys a question. I was going to ask you guys over Yammer, but it figured an audience and I can
On
know.
the spot.
Arctic Silver 5. I have a tube of this. Does it expire ever? Because I believe the last time I used
Not
it was...
as long as it's in the tube.
Okay.
Did you have
March
the tube with the
2008.
nozzle down or up?
I was just thrown in a drawer.
Did you put it in your pants at any
Yes.
time in the
No,
5
the silver
years
will
that you
slowly
owned
migrate
it?
down. So you'll actually get a higher
Really?
concentration of metal in it, in theory.
A
You should
bit late
taste
for
it.
that. I should have told myself that back in 2008.
No, don't taste it. Just use it. I'm sure it's fine. I don't know. Yeah, fill in a cavity, whatever you want to do. It's up to you.
Is your tongue getting colder quicker or slower?
Everything feels warm. I see it all going dark. No, so my actual pick is
This point of sale machine right behind me. If you have a credit card, I could swipe through it.
I told you guys about this on Yammer, our little internal social network for employees, and I guess Steve saw us reviewing it.
Nice.
So he was like, "Oh, you lucky?" I'm like, "No, I actually bought it." So thumbs up for purchases.
What is this?
But yeah, it's a digital art easel. You play around with it for drawing and stuff like that. I have a video review up on it on our YouTube account. Haven't get around to a written review yet, apart from little bits and pieces. Nothing published yet. That wasn't... Oh, okay. Yep, so it's a digital art easel. You can rotate it and raise it up and down, and otherwise just starts drawing. It's a lot better for people who try to use a tablet. I know I have, and I just could not get my head around doing something here and having what happens be somewhere else than where my finger is. So I figured that after my student loan was paid off, might as well pick this thing up, because probably if I were going to man hours to learn how to do it on a tablet versus actually buying one of these, if I valued my time at all, I'd probably actually be cheaper just to buy one of those, because sometimes learning to draw is not the easiest thing in the world. Some people spend their life...
I've been trying since I was 6. Failed every time.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird actually for me. I used to be terrible at drawing, and all of a sudden I just tried picking up a notepad. It was in the middle of university, and I was able to do a sketch, and I never knew where it came from. And from that point on, I was able to sketch.
Did you ever black out and you forgot where you were for 3 days?
Yes.
It was right around the time I first used Arctic Silver.
No, please do not take Scott's advice and eat your Arctic Silver. So my pick...
Arctic Silver.
Yeah.
Arctic Silver.
Nice. My pick is very simple, quick to the point. It is, if you have an iPad and you want to export it to any kind of display, the Apple Digital AV adapter, which is really just a dumb way of saying the Apple HDMI adapter, because that's what it is available. It's relatively inexpensive. I was surprised. I expected this to be a $70 or $80 accessory because it's from Apple, but it's $39.
But what would happen if it was an Apple Monster cable?
Wow, God, I can't even imagine what hell
I
that
think
would
the
be.
world would implode.
If you look at this shot of it, it actually, the cool thing that it does is that it has HDMI out, and it also includes a pass-through for the what do you call that? The dock connector. There you go. So you can pass through the power to it, so you can keep the device powered. I found it infinitely useful. I took an iPad and a TV someplace and connected it up to watch TV on it where we had none before. So pretty cheap little device, and it worked fairly well. Although I was told it only worked with the new iPad, which I thought this thing had been out since before then, but maybe not. So keep that in mind.
Doesn't surprise me. I think the new iPad's the only one that has enough to directly drive that.
I bought one for my iPad too.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh.
So, okay, we're going to end the show here. For everybody who's watching live and who wants to participate in this, we are going to play a little bit of UT 2004. The server's already up and running. It is game.pcper.com, or the IP address is 209.222.102.91. And I want to thank some people that helped us out. This is actually a server that we were trying to run it here, and we had all kinds of issues, and we're not very good at this stuff. So Cam over at ALX Tech actually hooked us up with a server that we can use to host various games depending on what we want to play that week. And ALX Tech actually put together this little package specifically for PC Perspective viewers, because we wanted to give them a plug and a shout out for helping us out and giving us this server and allowing us to pull our hair out for different reasons and not game server reasons. And what you'll see is they offer discounts that give you up to or as low as 65 cents per slot for game servers, and web hosting for 10 gigs or $4.25 a month. The game servers, you have an easy to use control panel that's I was really impressed with so far since I've been using it. It's a great ping. The servers are based in Philadelphia. Good customer service. Submit tickets, and then if you use the coupon code PCPerGaming, you can get a discount when you order it. So if I go here to the order page, you'll actually see that they, you can do Counter-Strike, COD. There's actually quite a bit more than what's listed here. And they actually, I think if I go back here, there is a list of games they currently support. You can see everything from Battlefield 2. The original Call of Duty, Far Cry, Minecraft, Painkiller, Star Wars Battlefront.
Ooh, the original UT.
Yeah, Unreal Tournament. All those games they can support.
Soldier of Fortune 2? Really?
Yeah, it's on there. It's on there.
Wait, no,
Sweet.
ET, the extraterrestrial from Atari 2600?
And of course, I also have cPanel-based web hosting too. If you're looking for something besides game hosting, this is worth taking a look at. PC per hosting is the discount code for that. And you can see what you'll get for this special deal: 10 gigs of space, 200 gigs of bandwidth, unlimited domains, email, enterprise, 99.99% uptime guarantee. So this all comes from our friends at ALXtech.net, and we really thank them for their support and helping us out with this. It's awesome. So we'll be talking about them throughout the future as well. The Easy Control Panel, I wish I could bring it up. I don't have the login here with me, but it's really cool to be able to restart your games through a control panel, edit INI files directly inside the control panel, and then restart the server and not have to really manage any of that kind of stuff locally.
Have server commands on the console to throw people around the map.
You can still do that. You can still do that stuff. The Steam games that we have on it as an option, there's a button that forces it to run the Steam updater, right? So the server-based Steam update, so that your games are always up to date. For example, we tried to play TF2, or at least test out the TF2 server, and it said that the server is running an old version. Go to the console, hit Steam update. You get to see it all happen in real time. Restart the server, boom, we could get into Team Fortress 2. So we are going to play UT 2004 tonight just because it's the one we've had set up and working the longest, and we're the most familiar with. If you haven't joined yet, you should go to our PC Perspective community group on Steam. Let me bring that up.
Brian, I gotta bow out.
You gotta bow out, or you're gonna buy out?
Actually, no, I've got an important call.
Okay, all right. Alan's leaving, everybody.
Alan Malvitano,
Future of the free
bye.
world depends on Alan right now, so he's got to go.
And we still have the
Bye, guys.
video card
See ya.
that people
See
have
ya.
tried to guess.
Okay, let's
This
go.
is
What is
the
it?
Canopus Pure 3D 2. All right, I don't know if you remember Canopus, but they were that Japanese video card company that
Cannabis?
put all time. Canopus. Canvas. But no,
cannabis?
at the time, they were some of the best video cards anybody ever had. Here's the box for it. Pure 3D 2. And the one that is most interesting,
That's
well,
fairly modern.
yeah, was the original Riva TNT.
Ooh.
I mean, it's not the TNT 2, it's the Spectra 2500 TNT. That was
Look at
one
the
of
shape
the
of
more,
that card.
I like the chunk out of the side of that
yeah.
card.
Yeah, MSI would be proud of them for
Mhm,
how they changed around the PCB. So, it's in
Just to
here.
think nowadays that would actually help with the size of the heat sinks.
What's interesting is you can actually plug these two together internally and not have a problem. You wouldn't have to have the external Voodoo 3D dongle thing that went from your 2D. It was all done through here. It was a pretty sweet card for the time, and expensive, like $500.
Really?
Yeah.
That's not great.
No.
Here, if we go back to my computer, you can see a screenshot of the admin system, just kind of how easy it is. You can see all the games that we have registered here and which ones are running, our UT, Team Fortress, Counter-Strike. And if I want to restart that server, I can just click that button, restarts and goes. It's actually really cool stuff. So, but we're going to play some UT 2004 down here. Let's see if there's anybody currently in the machine, in the server, currently playing. There are 3 people, including me, apparently. Interesting. And one person has a score of 32, so they've been cheating the whole time. So that's going to be it for this week. Thank you guys for joining us again. If you want to watch us record live, pcper.com/live. If you want to share the show with everybody, we encourage you to do so, pcper.com/podcast. So I know we're running a little bit long, so we'll go ahead and close out the show. See you next week. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Scott Michaud.
Thanks, guys.